On this episode of Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans, join me as I discuss the heartbreaking case of two best friends who went to the beach one summer day and never came home. Coming up right after this. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans. I am your host, Belinda and welcome. Thank you for lending me your ears and listening to my podcast. You are all so appreciated, and thank you for letting me be in your world, even if only briefly. Now, this episode is titled They're Gone, The Wanda Beach Murders. And I will go straight into my sources for this episode. It is www.abc.net.au, www.neighbourhoodmedia.com.au, www.thatslife.com.au, www.news.com.au, and trove.nla.gov.au. Now, straight into a trigger warning for everybody listening. This episode does discuss the sexual assault and murder of young teenage girls, so if that is distressing to you, listener discretion is advised. Now, I am drinking, for this episode, I am drinking a Nescafe caramel latte. One of those sachet things, and it's actually not too bad. Some of them are a bit hit and miss, but this one's actually not too bad. Okay, and a shout out to some listeners joining me from Florida, Tasmania. Yay, I finally got some Tasmania listeners. Welcome, guys. New South Wales, Kansas, North Carolina, Auckland, Brussels. Love that. Texas, I think I've already said that. I'll say it again. Queensland, Kawintaroo. I hope I've said that correctly. And of course, Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne. Love it, love it. Thank you guys for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. Okay, we're going to dive on into this episode titled They're Gone, The Wanda Beach Murders. Now, this murder is part of Australian history. No, when we talk about murders, this one is always mentioned, always. It's heartbreaking, and I won't spoil the ending for you, but it's just, it's a heartbreaking case, and one of the main ones that when us Aussies are talking about murders, this one will always come up. Now, let's start the episode. They're Gone, The Wanda Beach Murders. Now, January in Australia is peak summer season. Okay, so think hot days, even hotter nights, and humidity that makes one sweat where one should not be sweating. And when it's summer, you'll find most Aussies cooling off at the beach, just like anywhere else in the world. And if you guessed it is one of our favourite things to do when it is stinking hot, then you have guessed right. We have some of the most beautiful beaches in the world, so why wouldn't we go there to cool off and have some fun with family and friends and just, try and chill, try and cool off? Now, this is exactly what 15-year-old best friends Marianne Schmidt and Christine Sharrock were planning to do when they set out from their family homes in the western suburbs of Sydney, with Marianne's younger siblings in tow on the 11th of January 1965, bound for Wanda Beach. Now, Wanda Beach is a stunning part of coastline. It is a stunning beach, and it runs along Bait Bay in Cronulla, New South Wales. It was and still is a popular spot for swimmers and is famous for its sand dunes, which can get quite big, and you can hide in there. And the girls had been there a few days prior and were keen to get back. Now, Marianne Schmidt was born to Helmut and Elizabeth in Germany on the 30th of October 1948, and her family migrated to Australia in 1958, where they lived in a migrant camp before moving to a suburb in New South Wales called Temora. And the family, which consisted of Marianne and her siblings, Helmut Jr., Hans, Peter, Trixie, and Wolfgang and little baby Norbert, then settled in West Ryde in New South Wales. In 1963, sadly, Marianne's father, Helmut, passed away, And Marianne stepped up to help her mother with the household, raising the kids, keeping the place clean, and was described as a kind girl and your typical teenager, full of hope and laughter. And she loved spending time with her best friend Christine, who she met when she moved in next door to her West Ryde home. Now, Christine Sharrock was born to parents Cecil and Beryl in New South Wales on the 5th of October 1949. Sadly, her father Cecil passed away in 1953 and her mother Beryl had remarried and was living in Seven Hills, which is another suburb in New South Wales, not too far from West Ryde. And for reasons unknown, Christine chose to live with her grandparents in their West Ryde home, and that's how she and Marianne came to meet, because Marianne moved in with her family. They became neighbours. They became best friends. Christine was also described as kind and caring and loved spending time with her best friend Marianne. Now, where the girls lived, West Ryde, it's not a beach in sight. There's nowhere for the girls to cool off unless they go to the public pool. But luckily enough, a beach was only a train ride away. And in summer, it's not unusual to see kids with beach bags on the train heading to the coast to go for a swim. And that is what the girls were doing on the 11th of January 1965. The girls, along with Marianne's 4 younger siblings, caught the train to Cronulla, which was an approximate 2-hour train ride away, where they arrived at around 11 o'clock in the morning. Now, they found the beach was closed due to the high winds, so they walked to the southern end of the beach and took shelter amongst the rocks. 8-year-old Wolfgang wanted to go for a swim. He still wanted to go for a swim even though it was windy, so Marianne took him for a swim away from the rocks. And then when they returned, the girls and the kids had a picnic, and at some stage Christine wandered off down to the beach by herself. When Christine returned to the group, they decided to check out the sand dunes behind Wanda Beach because, like I said in the intro, they are pretty impressive. And at around 1 o'clock, they had gone about 400 metres, approximately 430 yards beyond the Wanda Surf Club. And they all stopped to take shelter behind a sandhill from the wind because the wind was picking up and blowing sand and it was just unpleasant. By this point, the kids were over it and wanted to go home. So Marianne told them that her and Christine would go back to the rocky end of the beach where they had hidden their bags after they had lunch, collect them, come back for the kids, and they would all head home. The 2 girls started walking away from the kids, but they were walking in the opposite direction. And when Marianne's brother Peter yelled this out to them, they turned, laughed, and kept on going. Now, the kids waited behind that sandhill until around about 5 o'clock, and when the girls didn't return, they walked to the rocks themselves, grabbed their bags that were still there. They hadn't been collected, and this also included Marianne's and Christine's purses, and they caught the last train home, arriving at about 8 o'clock, some 12 hours after they had left their homes with Marianne and Christine, Marianne and Christine. Christine's grandmother, who Christine was living with, reported the girls missing at about 8:30 p.m. Marianne's mother was in hospital at the time, and when she was told of Marianne and Christine's disappearance by Marianne's brother Hans, who had stayed home to clean that day, so his younger siblings have come home. They've realised the girls are missing. He's rushed to the hospital to tell his mum. She cried to him, all distraught, they're gone. On Tuesday, the 12th of January, a man called Peter Smith was taking his 3 young nephews for a walk through the Wanda Beach sand dunes when he found what he thought was a mannequin. Kneeling down, he brushed away some sand from the head and quickly realised he had actually discovered a body. Now, Peter ran off and called the police from the nearby surf club. And at this stage, police believed he'd only found one body, but underneath the sand dunes, hidden by the sand that had blown overnight, police quickly discovered there were 2 bodies. And the bodies were that of Christine Sharrock and Marianne Schmidt, and both girls had been brutally murdered. Both girls were partially clothed and both had scratches on their faces, indicating they had fought for their lives. Christine was face down, her head against the sole of Marianne's left foot, who had been placed above her. A 34-metre, approximately 37-yard drag mark leading to the scene indicated that Christine had tried to run while her friend was either dying or being attacked, only to be dragged back by her killer. Christine's skull had been fractured by a blow to the back of her head, and she had been stabbed 14 times. Marianne's throat had been cut so viciously she was almost decapitated, and she had been stabbed up to 30 times. Their underwear had been cut, and semen found on both girls indicate that rape had been attempted. Marianne's brother, Hans, who broke the news to his mother about his missing sister and her missing daughter, went with his mother to Cronulla Police Station, where he insisted on seeing the photos of how she was found, telling the police, "I need to know what he did." Police were baffled. They had no idea who did this. They had no idea who would want to kill two innocent teenage girls, and New South Wales and Australia was left in a state of shock. Two families were grieving the horrible loss, the horrible, brutal murder of their loved ones, and everyone was left asking why. A devastated Sharrock and Schmidt family buried their daughters on the 20th of January, and a £10,000 reward was offered for any information that led to the arrest and capture of their killers. And that was a lot back then. And it was up to £20,000 in 1966. Now, an autopsy on the girls found that Christine had a slight blood alcohol content of 0.015, but Marianne had none in her system. It was also discovered that Christine had eaten food different to Marianne and her siblings. Now remember, they had a picnic before the girls were murdered, and the contents of Christine's stomach included cabbage and celery, with many speculating they were the contents of the Aussie version of a spring roll, a cult favourite here in Australia. It's called a Chico roll. It's just like a giant spring roll, only full of cabbage and celery and beans and carrot, and wrapped in a flour pastry tube. They were so popular. And they were easily accessible in any takeaway store of all corners of the country, beaches included. You could get them everywhere and anywhere, and again, they were incredibly popular. And that had police thinking, had Christine met someone when she wandered off from the group earlier that day and had a Chico roll with them and maybe a little bit of alcohol? It does happen. It could have happened. So police left no stone unturned and interviewed around 7,000 people, making it the largest investigation in Australian history, and a few things came from their investigation. The first being the possible Chico roll and the definite alcohol discovery in Christine. And where did she get that from? Because she did not have that with the group. And Marianne's brother, Wolfgang, who was at the beach with the girls that day, told police he noticed a teenage boy near the group hunting for crabs, and this was around the time that Christine had wandered off. He then saw this boy again, this time in the company of his sister and Christine, and then he saw this boy again, only this time he was walking alone. He said he had what looked like a homemade spear gun or a fishing knife on him, and the last reported sighting of the girls was by a local fireman by the name of Dennis Dostine, who was in the area with his son and saw the girls walking about 730 metres, around about 800 yards north of the surf club. He said he didn't see anybody else with the girls or anyone in the vicinity, but he said the girls seemed to be in a hurry and they often looked behind them as if to see they were being followed. It was also discovered that only days earlier, on the 1st of January 1965, both Christine and Marianne had been to the beach, and the girls' diary entries indicated that either one or both of the girls had kissed some boys at the beach that day. Marianne returned to the beach that following day, but without Christine, and when Marianne's mother was admitted to hospital for a major operation, Marianne was given permission to take her siblings, some of them anyway, because some had to stay back, to the beach with her on that fateful day. Now, there were also reports of several men around the area, from fishermen to a man sunbaking in the dunes with a sheet of corrugated iron over his face, to possibly most disturbingly, a man who was either flashing himself or asking women to look at porn mags with him. But all leads led to a dead end. Police found various items around the crime scene, including a blood-stained knife, but this could never be linked to the murders. You got to remember, DNA wasn't around then, and anything that could have linked anybody was really in its infancy, and the case quickly became cold. In the years that followed, several suspects emerged, such as a man by the name of Alan Bassett, who had been jailed for the brutal rape and murder of a woman by the name of Caroline Orphan in Wollongong in June 1966. Now, a former detective, Seth Johnson, had been gifted a painting by Alan in 1975 titled A Bloody Awful Thing. And in this painting, Seth believed Alan had painted blood trails and a broken knife and a murder victim. And he believed that this was some kind of confession without it actually being a confession. Now, Alan took Seth to court over defamation claims, and the case was very quickly thrown out. Alan has since volunteered to give a DNA sample, and from what I could find, he has, but it is not known if he has been linked to the case or not. And I dare say if there was a match, we would definitely know about it and we would be talking about it. Another suspect was a serial killer by the name of Christopher Wilder. Now, he was a US citizen visiting his family, his parents who were in Australia, and Christopher had been convicted of gang rape on a beach in Sydney, which led to him being a prime suspect in the Wanda Beach murders. He also had charges against him for forcing two 15-year-old girls to pose nude for him, and he went back to the US in 1984 where he murdered 8 people and attempted the murder of many more. If it was him, however, we will never know because he died in the second part of 1984 during a struggle with police in New Hampshire. Another suspect, and the prime suspect, was a man by the name of Derek Percy. Now, the public wasn't made aware of the possible connection to Derek and these murders until 1998, and he had been in jail since 1969 for murdering a child on a Victorian beach. He was considered too dangerous to ever be released and was the prime suspect for the Wanda Beach murders, as well as several more in Sydney and in Melbourne. But he died from cancer in 2013 and never confessed to anything. So the police were hoping for a deathbed confession, but it never came. In 2017, Marianne's brother Hans gave an interview to an Australian magazine called That's Life, detailing the events of that awful day and the aftermath it had on his family. He was the one who broke the news to his mother, who was in hospital. He was the one who saw the distress and the sadness and the heartbreak. There was no counselling back then, so the family just had to, I guess, get on with it. And his family tried his best to get on with their lives, knowing that their beautiful, beloved sister was gone and she had died in such a horrible way. He also said he demanded to see the photos of his sister, even though he was only 13 at the time, because he wanted to know what the man who killed his sister had done. And he has called for the crime scene photos of his sister and Christine to be released so the public can see what was done to his sister and hopefully stir up the conscience of someone who knows who the killer is. I mean, surely there has to be one person out there who knows who killed those girls, right? There has to be at least one person. The case is still unsolved. It is still an active case today. And if you have any information, big or small, please report it. You might just be the person to help the mystery of the Wanda Beach murders and bring Christine and Marianne's killer to justice. And there we have it, guys. The story of two 15-year-old girls, two best friends who went to the beach and were brutally murdered. It's just heartbreaking and it's tragic. And like I said, it's part of Australian history. And when we talk about unsolved murders, they come up all the time. And I hope in my lifetime we have a conviction, or even if the person who killed them is no longer with us, at least we have a name of the monster who did this to those beautiful girls. And that's it, guys. Another episode of Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans done and dusted. Thank you for lending me your ears, wherever your ears may be that at home or at the gym or driving or settling in for a comfy night. Thank you for doing it with me. If you have any feedback at all, you can send me some fan mail. You can leave me a comment on my YouTube page. You can subscribe there. And if you like ghost stories and if you are fascinated by Australia and ghost stories, and we are haunted, we are a haunted country, come discover it with me. If you subscribe to this podcast, you get bonus episodes, bonus ghost stories. Yeah, can I get a yeah for ghost stories? So if that is your thing, please subscribe and let's discover haunted Australia together. And of course, if you want to reach out with some feedback or a comment or your thoughts, please, I welcome it. I would love to hear from you, and I do love hearing from you when I do. So please, you can comment on my YouTube page. You can send me fan mail. You can buy me a coffee. I believe you can leave me a message with that as well. So please, don't be shy. I don't bite, I promise. You've been listening to Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans. I'm Belinda Brady. And until next time, guys, thank you again for your company. And stay safe, stay cool, and stay caffeinated. I'll catch you all later.